Take it easy and solve the school lunch problem with SPAM. S-P-A-M.
こんにちは、タイガークローラジオ。You are listening now. Back J.
You are listening to Tiger Claw Radio. Number 1 in vintage computer and video game entertainment. And now your host, Critical Failure.
Alright, boys and girls, this is Critical Failure. You're listening to Tiger Claw Radio. It's that time again, everybody. What a show we've got. Got some big news coming up. Okay, so EVO has happened, and some stuff happened with EVO. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about QuakeCon. Not too much, but I like to tip my hat to QuakeCon every year when it happens. But the big lead-off we're going to have that I want to talk about is Emu Paradise. Emu Paradise has closed. Now, this is a site that has been around pretty much since the beginning. I didn't go to this site a lot, but I went there like maybe once a year to get things. But I've been doing that once a year like almost since the very beginning. So that is a site that will sorely be missed. I don't know. I've got news that they've closed, but I'm going there now, and it looks like they're still up, I guess. I don't know. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and try and download something. We'll see if it works. We're going to download an Atari 2600 ROM because the first-party Atari ROMs are something that the Atari company allows you to do. So I won't be breaking any laws live on the air. We're downloading Space Invaders for the Atari 2600 off of Emu Paradise. Now, I looked it up on Google, and it's emuparadise.me, so perhaps the main site did go down. If you've got an Emu Paradise bookmark, I would double-check it, because it might be broken now. Hang on. Give me a second. I have to remember how downloading actually works. Yeah, it says this game is unavailable. So the site appears to be up. That's what's going on. But the servers that contain all the downloads are down. So my hat is off to Emu Paradise. Thanks for all the fun over the years that I've gotten from that site. And we'll have to move on. There's other sites out in the world. I believe Cool ROMs is still around. That sort of thing. If you want to try your hand at MAME, or if you happen to have some games on your Nintendo and you just want to get your Nintendo tapes backed up on the computer, these ROM sites, although they're vilified by the game companies, I mean, you know, they certainly have their place. Alright, so now it's time for some tunes. I've actually been listening to good old FM radio in the last week or so of doing my commute to work, which the radio for me is something that when I was 11 years old, the radio was my TV at night. I had to go to sleep at 9 o'clock. I had a little headset. I would listen to my Walkman. I would listen to my Walkman so much that the reels on the tape player would not turn because the batteries were so worn down. But even though the reels wouldn't turn, the radio would still receive stations. So I would listen to the radio every night for hours. This is when Loveline was at its peak. We're talking about, let's see, what was I in? Maybe 4th grade, 1994. And at that point, I loved the radio, and I loved it up until about 2000 when I discovered punk rock. And I threw my hands up with it. So I just started kind of listening to the radio again over the last week, you know, just kind of checking stuff out, just to see what's on here, you know. And they've been playing this song from Weezer, which, by the way, I can't believe Weezer is still around. They covered Toto, and I was like, oh, okay, that's all right. We'll listen to that. And then I heard that song every single time I drove from work or to work. And then by the end of the week, I was like, all right, I forgot why I stopped listening to the radio. So it's nice to be back home and be amongst my own music collection, where I have the new retro wave, the 1980s Dream compilation tape, which is a compilation of 14 MP3s of some top tier retro 80s synthwave, synth pop kind of stuff. So let's see what we got. We're gonna dig into that compilation, and we'll be right back. That's Starcat. The name of the track is Ghosts. Give me a second. Can we get what's the title of this thing again? The 80s Dream compilation tape, which is a bunch of MP3s that you can find. I have no idea where I got this. I went on Bandcamp and I was like, let's find some good synth wave to play on the show. But I can tell you the name of that artist was Starcat. And I gotta say about synthwave tracks tend to be really long. I've discovered most of them are over the 5-minute mark, which is usually longer than I play here on TCR if I can avoid it. But not that one though. All right, so I was sick over the last weekend. So we're gonna go back to Monday. Now, mind you, Monday when I was driving to work, I was not feeling great. I wasn't feeling bad, but I was not feeling great. Anyway, let's go back there now, because I think this made for some good podcasting. Monday morning Vancasting. It's humid and gross outside, and I got about 2 hours sleep last night. But you know what? Yesterday was such a wonderful day that it doesn't matter. It was so nice yesterday. I got a box of magic cards in the mail.
I made a video about this on my other channel. It's 1,000 cards, all commons and uncommons, and I opened it with my 2 kids, and we just had a ball. It was so great. Sorting through them, playing game after game. It was really, really great, man. It really was. Come time to go to sleep for the night, I don't know if I was overstimulated. I mean, I guess that was probably it. But sleep just did not come for me. All night. And now here I am the next morning, trying to make my way to work. Oh, I'll get through it somehow. In the meantime, Evo was going on. Now, when Evo comes, I don't pay close attention. I don't follow Evo, but I am interested in what games are being played. And when it happens, because when Evo is going on, there's usually a lot of sales on fighting games. And that's the way it was this year as well. Steam had a few choice fighting games on sale. Evo made the front page. I think specifically Tekken went down to $20. Tekken 7, which is a good deal. I have not yet pulled the trigger on it, but this would have been a good week to do it. One interesting story that came out of Evo, though, was the Super Smash Finals. There was a mass walkout during the Super Smash Finals because the top 3 finalists, who all faced off against each other, were all playing Bayonetta. So you had Bayonetta, and nobody cared to see who won. So there's some suggestion that perhaps the Bayonetta character is overpowered. Who knows? I haven't played that iteration of Smash, so I can't really comment on it. But I can say that that was something that you could observe by watching the crowd. There were stories on it. It seemed like a thing that people were upset about. Take it as you will. I think if I were watching Evo live and it came down to the finals and it was 3 people all playing the same character, especially if I didn't know who those 3 people were, I might lose interest as well. Well, as you can tell, my throat's shot and I'm kind of ready to hang it up for the day. But really quick, if I were able to just be done with work for the day, go home and play video games, and assuming I didn't just go back to bed, what would I play? Well, a couple days ago, I got to spend some time playing games with Tarabka, our good friend, on the internet, and we ended up playing, we played the Double Dragon trilogy, which is a .emu port. And so we played online multiplayer of the first Double Dragon, the arcade version. And I had a good time with that. We made it to the last level. We didn't beat it, but it was a lot of fun. And I got to use my arcade stick. And it's also worth mentioning that the netcode was spot on, which is difficult to find games like that between Sean and myself, considering he lives overseas. But I hadn't played that game in a long time, so I wouldn't mind turning that on and giving that a spin, getting practiced up, so we can try again and actually beat it. Well, alright guys and gals, I'll send you back to the studio.
I actually did okay that day, and that's true. Last weekend, playing Magic cards with my children was it was the best. It was so much fun. We get to play again tonight, just before they went to sleep. I bought some land. I got some land from the what do you call it? The local shop. We built some real basic decks out of this big box of Magic cards, and now my son and my 4-year-old daughter both have Magic the Gathering decks. And we sat down tonight and we did a 3-way battle, which was a lot of fun. My daughter lost interest before the game was over, though, which was really unfortunate. That made my son very upset because he was winning. He had knocked me out of the game, and my daughter was down to 4 life. She was gonna go on the next turn, and then she was like, I don't want to play this anymore, and he got really upset. He was like, "You're robbing me of my win, man. That's my win. Come on now." By the way, I did start a new YouTube channel called Hot Tea and MTG. It's my Magic the Gathering and tabletop gaming channel. It's just starting out fresh. I got a few videos up now. Just a couple of booster pack unboxings and stuff like that. But I've been having fun with it. And there's going to be more content on that to come if you care to join me. Also, at this point in the show, I like to just tip my hat and thank the patrons. This is a Patreon-sponsored podcast. And to these guys, they get access to the monthly podcast called The After Party. They also get early access to TCR. As soon as it's done, I put it up so that they can listen to it. And I read their names off in Hall of Distinguished Gentlemen right here on the show. And they are Hemrock, James, Sendu, Tecmo Balls, Durabka, and the Cartridge Brothers. Thank you guys very much for supporting. I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And you are the reason that TCR keeps coming back week after week after week after week. You really are. This track is from Josh Liz, the Free the Music Volume 1 synthwave compilation. It's called It Still Hurts. This is Tiger Claw Radio. am digging the synthwave. Quite a sound to it, man. I think you had to be alive in the 1980s, even a little bit, even if you were just a kid like me. I was born in 1984, so all I remember of the 80s was Christmas 1988 when we got our NES, and I remember my older brother, D-Fens, bringing home a package of baseball cards in 1989. He opened them up. It was the first time I ever saw collectible cards. I was just glued to what he was doing. It was funny because I distinctly remember him watching him open these baseball cards, thinking all sorts of things. I was thinking, we don't buy those. Why did we never think to buy those before? Those are so cool. And we collected baseball cards, me and two of my brothers, all the way up until 1993 is when we stopped. So it's a few years in there. And then a couple years later, in '95, there was a big strike over money, and there was no World Series that year. And then we lost all faith and hope in baseball, all the way up until 2005, when the Washington Nationals were formed in Washington D.C. They moved out from Montreal. They were the Expos, Montreal Expos, which I remember very well because we have Expos cards hanging around from the old days somewhere. I remember my older brother was able to get his hands on an autographed. No, it wasn't autographed when he got it, but he got a Cal Ripken Jr. rookie card, which I think when he bought it, it was probably like 1991 or something, and it was under glass. He paid a pretty penny for it, but I don't know, $15-20, I don't know. I can't remember. I was a kid. And he sent it away, because that's what you used to do in those days when you had trading cards. You would send them away, and your favorite sports hero would sign it and then send it back to you, which I don't think they do anymore. But he did that, and Mr. Ripken did sign it, and he sent it back. So my older brother has an autographed Cal Ripken Jr. rookie card from way back in the days. It's one of the prizes of his collection. Oh yeah. So we talked about Monday, and we went through what happened Monday morning, and you could hear, listening to that, my voice was just shot. It took everything I could to get through that Vancast. Let's fast forward from Monday all the way up until Thursday, all right? Thursday I was feeling a lot better. Let's take a listen.
Good morning, it's Thursday, it's time for the Vancast, and I'll tell you what, guys, I'm off to work a little bit later than normal this morning. Woke up, same as I always do, bright and early. I got my tea, sat down, and I spent the whole morning playing with my Magic the Gathering cards. I'm building a deck for my daughter to play with. And I just got lost in the stacks. What can I say? I underestimated how fun a box of 1,000 throwaway common cards can be. It was really fun building this morning, especially knowing that I didn't have to build anything competitive. It was just something fun for my daughter to play with, so we could play together. It was great. I had a good time. Just sitting quietly early in the morning at my desk. You know, I had the desk light on, but most of the rest of the lights are off, so it was nice and dark. It was a good morning, I must say. So here's some Steam news that I wanted to throw your way. I believe the company is Koei, who created. I know them from creating a game for the Super Nintendo called Uncharted Waters 2, New Horizons, which I was talking to Alex Swingle about this last night. I guess they produced, I don't know what their role is, but if you buy that Super Nintendo game, the Koei logo shows up at the beginning. Anyway, Koei released probably maybe 10 different historic computer games on Steam, and they're all on sale right now. But none of them are in English. And I was looking at the entry for Uncharted Waters and Uncharted Waters 2, New Horizons. And according to the comments, they're saying that game was developed in traditional Chinese language. which is not what I would have thought. But I'm just looking at all these games, and they're old computer games, like really old computer games, and I'm just green with envy because none of them support the English language, and there's a lot of them. Like, apparently this was a company that was making pretty in-depth strategy games pretty early on. I was talking to Swingle, like I said yesterday, and he was saying that they look awesome, but from what he hears, they had at least Uncharted Waters 2, New Horizons, had a lot of unnecessary complexity on the computer, and they had to strip all that away when they went to the Super Nintendo. So he was suggesting that perhaps it was one of those things where the reality is not quite as good as it looks. And I could see that being the case. But those were video... And they weren't cheap either, that's the other thing. It's like, you're looking at old, early 90s, maybe even late 1980s computer games. And they were priced like $15 a game. And on sale, they dropped to a whopping like $9.50 or something. Not cheap games by any stretch of the imagination. But man, did I want one. If I could muse over Uncharted Waters 2 for Super Nintendo. The people I know who've played that game all say it's awesome. I've never met somebody who's played New Horizons who thought it was, that game's okay, or that game's bad. Everybody I've met who's played it loves it. And it may be the last true, quote-unquote, underrated gem on the Super Nintendo. In this age where everybody wants to take the underrated games and parade them out, you know, for clicks or views or whatever, this is a true underrated classic. It was so good. There was like sword fighting that you could do by playing cards with numbers on them, right? You could play blackjack with people at pubs. There was like the ship battles were really in depth. You have like 10 on 10 strategy ship battles, and then there was like trading, so you could just buy and sell goods and earn money that way. And you could like run quests, and it was so cool. There were factions, right? So you had to be careful which countries liked you and which ones didn't. Such a cool game. Such a cool game. And an interesting story about how I got my copy of it as well. See, my parents didn't really approve of us having video games. But there were a couple instances where my parents bought them for us. One was when we got our NES action set in 1988 on Christmas. It's the first time I ever saw a video game console. And then there was another instance, one Christmas after my dad died, my mom got me and my brother Super Nintendo games. And the way she did it was, they were brand new games, she wrapped them up, and she didn't put our names on either one, right? So she was like, okay, you take one and you take one, and it doesn't matter which gets which. Now, my older brother opened his first, and his was Doom for the Super Nintendo. Now, a couple of things about Doom. Up until that point, we had never played Doom with a sound card. You younger guys might not remember this, but if you had a computer in the early 90s, it was very common for people to have computers with no sound card in them. Sound cards did not come standard in those days, right? So that's how our computer was. We didn't have one. There were some rare games that supported a PC speaker, which was a little bleep bloop speaker that was built into the machine, but no sound card. So we had played Doom, but we'd never played it with sound. So when we opened it for the Super Nintendo, we knew what was coming. And if you're familiar with the Super Nintendo port, yes, it's very flawed. Yes, it's very ugly. Yes, its frame rate sucks. But there's one thing that Super Nintendo Doom does very, very well. And that was the one thing we were hoping for, was the sound. So I grew up loving the Doom Super Nintendo port for that reason. I thought it was great, even amidst all its problems. So I saw him open Doom, and I was so excited. All right, let's open mine. Wait, it's this game with a ship on it and a bunch of people. Mom, did you get me an educational game? The disappointment was through the roof in that moment. I couldn't believe, it was one of those moments where, my mother bought us Super Nintendo games, so I was happy for that, and I wanted to be happy no matter what. I didn't want to be ungrateful, not just because I didn't want to let my mom down, but because I knew the effort she had put in, and I really was grateful. But in that moment, I was really let down. Now, years later, I really got the better deal. It's a classic one-of-a-kind strategy game, best of the best. One of the few Super Nintendo games that I still come back to every few years today. And I still have my copy of that game, you better believe it. And then the other one was a game that is not well liked when people look back into the past. That's one of those little moments in time that's hard to communicate today, is the excitement of opening Doom for the Super Nintendo. Doom for the Super Nintendo was also the first ever Super Nintendo game I saw where the cartridge was a different color. It wasn't the only one. There were a few of them out there, right? Killer Instinct was black, and I know there was at least one other red game, but I had never seen it before, and it was just like, whoa. Even the cartridge is soaked in blood. So cool, man. So cool. And when Doom came out for the Super Nintendo, nobody was playing their computer games with a mouse and keyboard. Everybody was playing their computer games, both hands on the keyboard. Your right hand was on the arrow keys, your left hand was on the control button so you could do your shooting. So strafing was much more difficult in those days. Because of that, it was easier to adjust to playing a first-person shooter with a controller. So cool. I don't really cover the Steam sales, but Steam also currently has Quake, Doom, Hexen, Heretic. All those games are really cheap. I think Quake is $1.25 right now. The original, or Doom 2 is like 98 cents or something. So if you're missing any of those games, this is the time to go get them. I mean, it's unfortunate that by the time this comes out, that sale's going to be over. But every time I see those games go on sale, part of me wants to buy copies for my friends. Speaking of buying copies of those games for my friends, Doom Night, right? I talked a little bit about Doom Night a few weeks back, and there's a thread about it on the forums, on the Juice Bar. I think it's time we set a date for Doom Night. I don't have a calendar in front of me, but I'm thinking like a Friday or Saturday night in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks time from today. I'll have to look at my calendar and try and set that date when I'm back in the studio. But if I leave this segment and I go back to the studio and I don't say anything else this episode about Doom Night, message me about it, because we got to make this happen. It's already been a month since I started talking about it, and that's what time has a tendency to do. It just slips away. And if you don't set these concrete dates and make things happen, then they don't happen. And bringing back Doom Night, even if only for a couple of people for a single night, is something that I really, really want to do. Doom is an amazing, amazing game. Still fun today to load up the Xandronum and go through it. There's still people on there playing it. You better believe it, brother. All right. So now, usually how I like to end these segments, if I were able to just turn around and go home and play video games, what would I play? Well, I'll tell you. I didn't play any video games this morning because I was playing with my magic cards, so that would be very nice to be able to play some games right about now. I shot a video for Tiger Claw TV a couple days ago playing the MS-DOS version of Mario Brothers. Not Super Mario Brothers, the single screen game where you hit the ground underneath the turtle and the turtle flips over and then you gotta run around and kick the turtle and you get a coin. VGA Mario Brothers for MS-DOS. I made a little video about that that's going to go up soon. And I kind of have a taste to play that again. It's usually when I'm done making a video for a game, it's time to put that game aside for a while. And the games that defy that law are usually pretty good. And that's the case with Mario VGA. At least for an MS-DOS port of a well-known Nintendo game. That's pretty good. Oh boy, the sun's right in my eyes, boys. Alright. That said, I'm getting better from my cold, but you can still hear in my throat I'm a little hoarse. So, I'm going to go ahead and hang it up for the day. I have got to go do my day at work. I'll see you guys back in the studio.
And that's it. That's all the van casting I got for this week, which I think is just the perfect amount because now we have some time to talk. This morning, I got up nice and early. And I got my tea and I sat down with some butterscotch blondie, which is my favorite kind of tea. It's a black tea that they make. I think Tazo makes it. Oh, it's so good. And I don't drink it with any milk or sugar or anything like that. I have the hot water. I brew the tea. I let it sit, and then I just drink it straight, just like that. I think being somebody who has come off of coffee, and I used to drink my coffee black. I think that's the best way to drink your tea, is like a coffee substitute. And that was good times. So I got up this morning and I fixed my tea and I sat down at my desk, and I fired up Quake Champions. Now let's be fair. Okay, well here's the thing. It took me 2 minutes of matchmaking to actually get into a match. But let's be fair. It was 5:30 in the morning. But I played Quake Champions this morning, and man, I just got shellacked. It was the first time I went all the way through an entire match of Quake Champions and didn't make one frag. It was pretty disheartening. I would have been okay with just one. I knew it was early in the morning. I wasn't on my game, and QuakeCon is going on right now, so I imagine there were some people on there who had been playing a lot recently. I did get a custom skin though, or not a custom skin, but they gave everybody a skin that for your machine gun that says QuakeCon 2018 on the side of it, which is pretty cool. I do like Quake Champions. I like it about 1,000,000% more than I thought I would. Even though there are quote unquote classes, it's still same old Quake. It really is. All right. I want to read an email that I got from Hemrock a couple days back. I'm not quite ready to jump into the fail bag comments from YouTube just yet, but Hemrock's email, when it comes in, tends to be a session all to itself. He usually has some really good comments, and reading it a little bit early, only 38 minutes in, I guess, gives me some time to really break it down and answer what he's got to say. So come with me to the emails, won't you? Hemrock writes, "Hey CF, thanks for responding to my email. Here are a few thoughts on some things you mentioned. Number one, you asked why I don't use Linux to run Morrowind as opposed to XP. Well, as you know, Linux compatibility is not perfect. While you may be able to get Morrowind to run, you might not get the mod you really like to run, or some other Windows program. I just like the idea of having a fully functional Windows XP computer that will run nearly any game from the late 90s to the mid-2000s. If I wanted to run vanilla Morrowind, I would merely use my Xbox. Speaking of Xbox and Morrowind, I have actually just begun a new Morrowind game on the Xbox. I'm kicking it old school with no mods, no visual enhancement, etc. So far, it's actually been pretty fun. Number two, glad to hear you might give MTG Online a whirl. Let me know if you take the dive. Perhaps we can play a few rounds. Number three, cool to hear that you're going with LXLE. That's a Linux distro I'm not familiar with. Perhaps let me know how it works out for you. Number four, yes, I did say previously that I did not like Manjaro. However, I may give it a second try. I dual boot with Linux Mint, and I'm not sure how difficult it would be to replace Linux Mint with Manjaro in a dual boot environment. Spoiler alert, not very hard. Let's read on. Plus, at the moment, I don't want to bother with the hassle. I might try to update Mint to 18.3, and maybe that will improve the speed and compatibility issues I've experienced with 18.1. Number 5, if I had to choose between Grid Runner and Baku Baku, I'd take Grid Runner. I think you'll get better mileage with that game. Grid Runner is more unique, a more unique experience than Baku Baku, since Baku titles take some familiar puzzle elements from games like Tetris and Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Number 6, that's cool that FF9 is your favorite Final Fantasy game. Speaking of that, your FF9 video game review is one of my favorite videos that you put on YouTube. Do you have any reviews planned for the near future or far future? Number 5, thank you for that list of Xbox games. I'm getting back into the original Xbox, and I'm looking for any hidden gems. Any hidden gems that you would recommend? He also says, have you heard of OpenMW? Their website describes the software as a free open source modern engine based with replacements and extends the one that runs the 2002 open world RPG Morrowind. The engine comes with its own editor, OpenMW-CS, which allows the user to edit or create their own original games. I believe it runs natively on Linux. However, you still need the Morrowind data files to play the game. They just released an update at the end of July. Check the link if you're interested. Also, if you'd rather watch a video than read, here is the latest update video on YouTube. Keep rolling retro. A lot of good stuff on this one, my man. Hemrock, it's always good to hear from you, brother. Let's go back to the top. Morrowind. Yes, an old favorite. An old favorite of mine that I loved to play and make videos about, and nobody watches the videos. Almost nobody. Not fair to say nobody. But when I enjoy something like that, I like to take the games that I like, that really mean something to me. And my video games as a whole, I do this. I like to turn it into a project. I mean, that's part of what we're doing here on Tiger Claw Radio and Tiger Claw TV. Take my video games and turn it into some kind of project, so while I'm enjoying the games, I'm also working. There's also work involved, so I can look back, and at least in some small measure, I can look over my collection and be like, my collection of videos and podcasts and stuff, and be like, I did this. I created something. I've accomplished something. So Morrowind being a game I enjoyed, I found a way to make it, you know, something where I would produce something. So I made Monday Night Morrowind, and that worked for a while. And I was also experimenting with what it would be like to make a series of videos that came out every week, like TCR. I remember you mentioning OpenMW. So they have an editor, huh? How hard do you think it would be to make mods for it? Maybe you and I could collaborate on a Linux-only Morrowind mod. What do you think? Even something simple like, I don't know, dialogue changes or added NPCs or something. I've seen videos of people work with the original Morrowind editor, and it doesn't look that complicated. It has to be pretty simple, because mods are still coming out for Morrowind today, right? People have to know how to do it. I would consider something like that. Yeah, and the whole Windows XP thing going down is very sad. It's very sad. Magic the Gathering Online, that was your next point. I'm definitely giving that a whirl, dude. I've got my kids all set with their physical cards. I'm almost all set with mine. Believe it or not, I think the only thing I'm missing is basic lands. I'm using basic lands from the game store stockpile that they have just open that you can take some. The problem is those lands are old, and I built a standard compliant deck that I want to take to Friday Night Magic and be able to play. So I would hate to not be able to play just because I'm using lands that happen to be 10 years old. Apart from that, I got all the cards I need. I watched your video on how to set up, get started with that game for less than $10, or excuse me, for about $20, right? Start the account. There's a budget deck for about $7, and then you're good to go. I shop the TCG player quite often for cards, and I've looked at that Goldfish MTG site as well. So I see cheaper options for actual, or for Magic the Gathering Online all the time. So I'll definitely be getting into that at some point. I just want to see. Yeah, no, that's the end. I was going to say I wanted to see what the system requirements are and whether or not it would run on my old laptop, but I think I would still get into it even if it didn't. All right. Manjaro. Yeah. Okay. So Manjaro was the first one I ever live booted, and I live booted it a long time ago, probably around the same time you tried it, I would wager. And it has a full featured installer, just like Linux Mint has. So if you're trying to overwrite Linux Mint with Manjaro, it's gonna pick up on the partition, and then you can just install it on that partition, and then there you go. And then when you set your boot sequence to boot to that drive, and then it'll pick up the grub menu, and then on your grub menu you'll have Manjaro and Windows. There you go. You would be able to do it. You were smart enough and capable enough that you could do it if you felt like it. But believe me, Hemrock, I completely understand the whole concept of I just don't feel like doing it right now, because I've waited a long time to do many a thing under the banner of I just don't feel like doing it right now. You also asked about reviews. Do I have any reviews coming down the pipeline? I think right now the only thing that's stopping me from doing a review is I have to actually sit down and write something, because that's the thing. That's the ingredient X that I'm missing. It has nothing to do with my equipment anymore. I got a good. I mean, my audio sounds okay. I got a brand new webcam. I've got everything I need. I just have to write something that would be interesting to listen to, and then we've got a review. Because I feel like I could do all the rest of the things without very much effort anymore. I would love to do more reviews, like real reviews. I don't know. We'll see. I'll have to do something. I'll just sit down with LibreOffice open and just write some things, or maybe play some games with a notebook next to me and take some notes. But yeah, I would love to do a review. I don't have anything in the pipeline right now. Like I don't have anything being worked on actively at the moment. I'm gonna do some reviews of Magic cards that are written. I've been doing research, believe it or not, on favorite Magic cards. And my old favorite, the Shivan Dragon, which was my favorite when I was a kid, and that card's still around. They reprinted it in Core 2019, Core 19. So that's gonna be like a one-off, not like a one-off thing, but it's not going to be as detailed as the old Tiger Claw TV review series. I'm gonna do a little writing, throw in a couple screenshots. It'll be face camera time, and we'll be in. Yeah, LXLE. I should really do that tonight because I want to get LXLE off the ground. I just haven't done it. I'm exhausted. And the list of Xbox games. Now, this was the reason I wanted to read your comment first, is because I read this when you first sent it to me 3 days ago, and I wrote a list of Xbox games. I don't know if any of these are considered hidden gems, because you got to understand, the Xbox games that I own, I've got a pretty small original Xbox collection, and I'm pretty sure all of them are run-of-the-mill games. I don't think I have anything that's necessarily rare or underrated for the Xbox. I get a lot of thrift store games, so, you know, racing and that kind of thing. But anyway, here's my list of games I can think of that I would like to own. And they are Gun, which is also available for the PS2. I played through that about 10 years ago, and I absolutely loved it. It came out before Red Dead Redemption, so people cite Gun as an early version of what Red Dead Redemption did. The only problem with Gun is you got to play it for about 2 hours before it really opens up and becomes open world like Red Dead was. There were some sports games called Outlaw Volleyball, and Outlaw Golf. I thought those looked silly. I've got Project Gotham Racing is a pretty fun game. I own that. I like that. Here's one for you: Jet Set Radio Future. That's worth looking up. Jet Set Radio Future was a game that I had on my modified Xbox hard drive when that was still working, and I played it some back in the day in about 2004 or 2003 whenever I got this thing, but I haven't played it since because I don't own a legit copy, and it doesn't boot to the old menu anymore. Tenchu Return from Darkness. I don't know anything about that game, but I like the Tenchu the Stealth Ninja games, so I'm going to look that up. Soul Calibur 2, also available for the original Xbox. I would like to own that. There's a couple games I have on this list that I own already for like the PC, but I put them on anyway, just because I like to own them. And they are Deus Ex Invisible War, Serious Sam 1 and 2, and Prince of Persia Sands of Time. Which, interestingly enough, turns out I do own Prince of Persia Sands of Time. I've just never put it in the machine. And why? Because I'm a piece of garbage. Alright, moving on. We got a few more games here. Spy Hunter 2, you might remember back in the PS2 era, Spy Hunter was remade into a 3D game. And I do have a copy of that for the PS2. It's a very good game. It is very good, but it's also very difficult. And a lot of the core features of the game, like 2-player split screen, are behind an unlock wall with unreasonable requirements to unlock them. Spy Hunter 2, I'm hoping, takes care of that problem. Also, we've got Jade Empire. That looks like a cool game. Sega GT 2002, because Sega does racing games really well. Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Roller Coaster Tycoon. And there's Reservoir Dogs. There was a Reservoir Dogs video game. And I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. If you haven't, you might not understand this, but that game answers the question of whatever happened to Mr. Blue. Who, if you've never seen the movie, well, hey, I can't spoil it because they never explain it. Sudeki is a cool looking game. There's a game called Enclave, which has gone for sale on Steam as low as 99 cents, and I bought it, and people say it's really, really good. Like nice hack and slash fun stuff. And then there's a game that is in all caps, and it's one word, Gun Valkyrie, which I believe is a shmup. Not a lot of shmups on the original Xbox, but I believe that's one of them. So that's a big list, a pretty big list of original Xbox stuff for you to chew on. And I'd be interested to hear. By the way, you also sent me a Magic the Gathering Battle Mage. Was it Battle Mage? Hold on a second. I've got it up on the shelf. Battle something. Battlegrounds. Yeah, Magic the Gathering Battlegrounds. And you said it's very different from the Magic the Gathering Battlegrounds on the PlayStation, right? Very different game, and not at all the card game. But that's an Xbox game. And you know how I know? Because you sent it to me, like, I don't know, 5+ years ago. But that's another one for your list if you're getting back into the good old Xbox. All right, let's head over to YouTube and see what kind of comments we got there. We got one from What's on My Shelf, who, by the way, he just released a video going over his diskette collection, and I haven't sat down with it yet, but I'm excited to because I've seen his one about the video game ads, and it was very, very good. So What's on My Shelf? He's got some good videos. And he writes, I'm telling you, Steam streaming downloaded libraries on giant hard drives are going to be a point of pride for gamers in the future. In regards to cleaning Atari carts, I never want to destroy them in order to perfectly clean them. I just open the doors and rub the pins as best I can with the pencil arrowhead eraser extension on an isopropyl alcohol-soaked Q-tip. This method usually gets off a good deal, but it's not as great as to have unrestricted access to the cart's innards. Yeah, I need to know the trick to getting those doors open, because I see people do it in Atari, like cart cleaning videos, and I know you like stick a screwdriver in that hole, but I've never actually done it myself. I'm sure once I do it, it'll be like, oh, that's a simple thing, and I just know how to do it now, but I don't know. I haven't. Good to hear from you, brother. I hope your videos do well, because they're good. They should get watched by people. Desm101 writes, La Mulana is good, but so cryptic to figure out. It only made it to a couple of bosses. The sequel looks great. Then he leaves a time signature at 1 hour and 28 minutes. Yes, I know I'm a huge video pinball fan. We'll definitely check out Rollerball. Your recommendations are usually spot on. All right. Are you from? Here's another one, just because I know I read this when you first posted it a few days ago, and then I started racking my brain about video pinball, and I wanted to compare notes. So, Sean the gaming beast, from Darabka, he and I got into not an argument, but we have a difference of opinion when it comes to classic pinball games for the PC. My favorite classic pinball PC package is a game called Epic Pinball. Epic Pinball was one of these packages where if you go get it now, it's got like 10 pinball tables in it or whatever it is. But if you bought it back in the day, they sold the pinball tables in packages, so you might have had one, maybe two. Or if you had the shareware version, it was just like the Android table. But those tables, in my opinion, were the best. The best PC video pinball, at least up until the CD-ROM era. And for Sean's money, he likes the Pinball Dreams games, which were a little bit older, but not by much. So if you've played either one of those, I'd be interested to hear your take on it. Also, since you know I like 1980s software, have you ever played the Pinball Construction Set? There's not many games that allow you to actually create your own pinball table. There's a couple, but in the 80s, there was one called the Pinball Construction Set. It was one of the games from Electronic Arts that they sold in a record album case because they wanted to treat their developers like rock stars. And this game there's never been anything like it. In order to recreate the elongation of the pinball table, they cut the screen in half vertically, and your pinball table exists solely on the left-hand side of the screen. The right-hand side of the screen is a drag-and-drop palette of bumpers and stuff. So yes, you get to create a pinball table, and it's like easy enough that a child could look at the screen and understand exactly what's supposed to happen. Beautiful software. And something that for some reason we've never gotten again since then. So I have a special connection to the Pinball Construction Set. If you're interested in pinball at all, video pinball, at least look it up on the YouTube and take a look at what it looks like, because that was a huge one. That game would let you'd create a pinball table, and then you could save the pinball table as an externally runnable executable file. And then there were cases where people would use it to make tables, and then they would distribute the tables, right? Which was perfectly fine. But like in the CD-ROM era, I remember getting a copy of one of these like CDs. It was like 500 games, and it'd be full of shareware and stuff. And then you'd find a couple of these tables made with Pinball Construction Set on it. So awesome piece of software that I recommend checking out. And it's good to hear from you, man. All right. So that's pretty much all I got for this week. Just before I sign off, I wanted to talk about Doom Night. Not next week, but the week after. It's going to be Saturday and Sunday are the 25th and 26th. And then that Friday night is 24th. Let's do Doom Night that weekend at some point. All right? I'm going to make an announcement on the forums. We'll rally the troops. If you're hearing this before then, just make sure you get Xandronum downloaded. Get Xandronum downloaded. Make sure you have your Doom 2 WAD. Just load it up. There's people in there all the time. Make sure you can get into a match. This is something in the old Doom Nights that never quite worked for us. Is we were never able to get everybody up and running before game time. Right? There was always somebody who was just downloading it for the first time. We had to walk them through the process of getting everything plugged in and set up. It's not hard. It's simple. You guys are gamers. If you're a hardcore enough gamer to be able to download a video game related podcast, you can set up Xandronum. Especially now, while this is being recorded Friday night, you can still get Doom 2 for $1.24, which boggles my mind because I remember clearly having Doom 1 and wishing I had the money to buy Doom 2 and not being able to because it was too expensive. Well, all right, boys and girls, that's TCR for this week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Thanks again to the patrons who are supporting this podcast. I can't express my gratitude enough. It really makes a huge impact. It really does. And I hope I can continue to deliver quality product to you guys. So until next time, whatever's brought you here, 59 minutes and 24 seconds into this episode of Tiger Claw Radio, I hope you're doing well, and I hope your life is good, and I hope when problems come your way that you've got the fortitude to smash right through them. Smash right through those problems like the Kool-Aid man. Be the Kool-Aid man this week, all right? That's what I want you guys to meditate on. When problems stack up in front of you, I want you to just smash right through. Oh, yeah! Oh yeah, made with 1 solid cup of granulated sugar. It hurts my throat talking like that. It hurts my throat, but it makes me laugh. It's really quite a puzzle. All right, boys and girls. I hope you have a good week, and I'm really rooting for you. I am. I'll see you next Monday.